English shorthand dictation number 111. Dictation speed 160 words per minute. Ready? Start. I must appreciate the honest intention of my esteemed colleague who has introduced this bill. In the legislative document, the aim is defined. The bill seeks to make voting compulsory. The legislative document intends to cast more votes for the growth of our democratic system, but the means that have been suggested are not advisable in the context of our country. India always pleads the persuasive policy in all concerned problems of our country. But this is clearly smacking of a tinge of autocracy. So here I am compelled to disagree with the means of the legislative document as has been enunciated. Therefore, it is clearly prescribed in our constitution that voting is our right. It is a civic right nonetheless, and if we try to make it our civic duty, I think we will be landing in conflict with the basic tenets of our constitution, which advocates equality before the law. There is compulsory voting in some of the countries in the world. They are pursuing the practice of compulsory voting. It does mean that we have to mimic the practices of foreign countries because we have to understand the culture, the index of education, the fabric of our society, and the ambience under which we are brought up before deciding any policy. Sir, in our country, when the first election was held, common voters had put up the symbol of the party which deserved to win. On the top of a tree, the symbol was put to display their support to a particular party. This is the level of maturity that Indians had at that time. But we have journeyed across the 20th century and have come to the first decade of the 21st century. Still, we are to take into cognizance whether we will pursue any coercive policy or we will pursue the persuasive policy. Our objective must be to turn out more and more voters in our electoral mechanism because we are belonging to a representative democracy. Sir, we are living in a country which preaches representative democracy. The representative democracy is founded on the principle of elected individuals representing the people of our country as opposed to autocracy or direct democracy. Sir, representatives are chosen by the plurality of those who are able to cast vote. It does not mean that majority of votes are to be earned before being elected. A winning candidate needs to derive the highest number of votes among the contestants. This is the policy we are abiding since the electoral system of our country has been established. The representative democracy emphasizes individual liberty, and that is why we can say that India is a country which believes in liberal democracy. The liberty of any individual is mentioned in and is restricted by our constitution. Our constitution has framed up various measures, hundreds of articles, schedules, etc. to build a check and balance mechanism in our democracy. The major problem with representative democracy is voter apathy. You are absolutely right in saying this. It is the apathy of the voter. It is the indifferent attitude of the voter, which is really a matter of great concern. Sometimes it seems that governments are not being run by the mandate. They do not have any electoral legitimacy or right to rule. It is often seen. But we need to have an introspection into the fact as to why the electorate are getting indifferent to the electoral system. Why are they becoming apathetic? Why are they not participating in the electoral process? It needs to be dealt with. Sometimes it is found that people are reluctant to cast their votes, to exercise their franchise for or against any of the candidates because they do not like any of the candidates contesting the elections. The bill is suggesting a number of penal measures so that people could be forced to cast their votes. Even the honorable members are referring to some countries of the West. But it is also true that a number of countries where compulsory voting system was in vogue till the other day are now withdrawing it because they understand the untenability of compulsory voting. Only one country, namely Belgium, is pursuing the compulsory voting practice. It is called baton ballot. We cannot simply go by this way as has been proposed by the Gujarat government. I would pray to the Gujarat government to keep the citizens of Gujarat in peace and tranquility. The government, which cannot afford security to the common citizen, cannot ask for compulsory voting for the sake of democracy. Even in the year 1983, the Supreme Court affirmed that voting is a formal expression of will or opinion by the persons entitled to express the right on a subject or issue in question. The right to vote means the right to exercise the franchise. It is a right in favor or against any issue in question or any resolution. Such a right implies the right to remain neutral as well. Therefore, by this definition, it clearly vindicates that if we ask one to vote compulsorily, it will be tantamount to an infringement upon the freedom of an individual. I must argue that intense mobilization, more competitive electoral arena, arousal of interest in the elections are now being palpable in the aftermath of the assertion of regional parties. Sir, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that the electoral turnout in the assembly elections is found to be more than the general election. Our voters are mature, they are sensitive, and they are conscious. Otherwise, how have the voters of Jammu and Kashmir and voters of Arunachal Pradesh exercised their franchise? It clearly points out to the fact that without adopting any coercive measures, we can have a democratic upsurge in our country, where more and more Dalits, minorities, women and underprivileged classes are sucked into the electoral process. They are taking more and more interest in the electoral process now. So we need to make a further introspection into the reason why the common voters are getting reluctant to cast their votes and the percentage of voting is declining without resorting to any coercive measures, by the sheer dint of persuasion, by the dint of argument, and by way of giving avenues for more freedom of expression. We can increase the voting percentage in our country. Mr. Chairman, sir, I would like to express my thanks to you for giving me this opportunity to speak on this bill. At this juncture, I would like to appreciate my honorable friend for bringing this bill at the appropriate time with a novel idea. I endorse the concept of compulsory voting in principle. Democracy flourishes not only with the full participation of the people but also with the flawless electoral system. Before enacting legislation for compulsory voting in the election, necessary spadework should be made to make the concept really workable. It needs to be further improved so that the existing defects and faults are removed and a perfect system is put into practice. A defective and faulty system results in erosion of the democratic values. During the Diamond Jubilee celebrations of the Election Commission, the chairperson of the United Progressive Alliance and the president of the Congress Party has lamented over the growing money power, muscle power and criminalization of politics. I appreciate the Congress President for the outright condemnation of the growing evils. If this is the laudable principle of the Congress Party, if it is the worthy idea of the Congress President, I wonder how the Congress Party will be going to fight against these evils. In all the by-elections held in Tamil Nadu, the ruling party is adopting the same formula. If the Congress Party wants to follow the principles that the Congress President strongly suggested, there is no meaning in continuing alliance with the DMK. They should come out of the clutches of the DMK. It is good for the Congress Party and for the country as a whole. Another aspect I want to touch upon is the electoral roll system. Though we have conducted so many elections during the last 60 years, we have not yet developed an electoral roll system free from defects. More particularly in Tamil Nadu, the voters list is full of defects. Thousands and thousands of voters who are otherwise eligible were not included in the voters list. En bloc deletion of names of voters in a particular area is a common feature. The worst part of it is that voters having identity cards did not find their names in the electoral rolls. All this happened under the direction of the ruling party with the connivance of officials. The Election Commission is helpless. In Tamil Nadu, every election is being conducted through the defective electoral rolls. So the Election Commission should take effective measures for cent% inclusion of all eligible voters through scientific verification. I would urge upon the Election Commission to utilize the services of the central government employees and the employees working in the public sector undertakings for this task. Only after ensuring defect-free electoral system we can think of introducing compulsory voting in the country. Let me also draw the attention of this august House regarding electronic voting machines. Though the Election Commission says that the electronic voting machines are tamper-proof, there are instances where electronic voting machines have failed during the polling process. Electronic devices are liable to fail, and the electronic voting machines are no exception.